The extended meeting that we just finished, but welcome to the February 4th, 2025 Matthews County School Board regular monthly meeting, rescheduled from January 31st, 2025. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1.3, roll call, please.
Here.
Here.
Mr. Morgan.
Present.
Ms. Biggs.
Here.
Ms. Hodges.
Here. Present. Item 1.4, election of school board chair and vice chair. Do we have a nomination for chair?
I recommend Mary Gibbs for chair.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Election of the vice chair. May I have a nomination, a motion for nomination of vice chair, please?
I nominate Linda Hodges for vice chair.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1.5, approval of the agenda, additions and deletions. May I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda in two ways. One, to add to the recommended action of the consent agenda to retroactively revise the Matthews County School Board budget meeting calendar for FY26, and also to add item 6.5 under Superintendent's Report, the topic summary of boiler issues.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion? With no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1.6, the consent agenda. May I have a motion? May I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the December 17th, 2024 budget work session, December 17th, 2024 regular monthly meeting, adoption of resolution appointing Leslie R. Hunley, Assistant Superintendent, to serve in the absence of Division Superintendent at school board meetings, to approve the appointment of bonding of the school board deputy clerk and clerk until December 31st, 2025, adoption of Virginia School Board Association Code of Conduct for school board members, and Virginia School Board Code of Conduct for clerks and monthly claims as presented on the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion?
I'd like to, as we discussed in the consent agenda, also to revise the Matthews County's, to add to what you just stated, to add, to retroactively revise the Matthews County School Board budget meeting calendar for FY26.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I apologize, I wanted to comment. I did want to let everybody know on the, some of the expenditures that we have, that as we see when we approve the expenditures each month, there's a significant amount of what we purchase as far as physical therapy and occupational therapy, but we do receive monies back about every quarter. Special education bills Medicaid for that. So I just want us to be aware, not all of it comes back to us, but there is a certain percent that does come back to the school system. We don't see that when we approve the expenditures. Thank you, Madam Chair, for indulging me.
Great, that was a good explanation. Before moving to 1.7, so remaining on 1.6, we do have 2 board member monthly claim review periods that need to be assigned. We have March 17th and June 16th. Are there any members who are able to take either one of those? We have, let's see, February 14th, we have Mrs. Hodges, Ms. Diggs working together. March, we need someone. I will take April. Mr. Dobson has May, and June needs someone. Is there anyone we could at least fill in March for at this point?
Is it the 17th of March?
Yes.
I'll take that one.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, thank you. Mr. Morgan will take March 17th. If there's no takers for June, we'll try again next month for June. All right. Item 1.7, I'm looking for a motion for setting of regular monthly school board meetings, date, time, and location, January through December of 2025.
I make a motion to approve the regular monthly school board meetings for January through December 2025 as listed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I do have a piece of discussion. Since January 21st, that meeting was not able to be held and is being held as we speak. Do we need to make a note on this document to reflect that? Thanks, Ms. Morgan. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Nay. All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 1.8, the Matthews County Board Governance Norms and Protocols. Again, as usual, we read a section of the norms and protocols, and I'll just go ahead and read the next. We have 4, I believe, that are highlighted this month. Expectations for participation in meetings and conferences. School board members will contact school board clerk if wishing to attend a meeting or conference, so they need to do that up front. When and how the board evaluates the superintendent. The superintendent is evaluated annually prior to June 30th, and there will be a formative eval as part of closed session tonight. That's kind of a touch base, so we have added that in as well. When and how the board conducts a self-evaluation. The school board will conduct a self-evaluation during their summer retreat, or as I like to call it, a work session, and we will schedule that at our winter work session, which is on February 26th. When and how the board monitors and updates the school board's strategic plan. The school board reviews and evaluates the strategic plan in January and during their summer retreat or summer work session. And I would just add that I think we do more than that since we're constantly talking about it. Moving on to number 2. Item 2, we have a recognition tonight. Item 2.1 is we are having a recognition of the 2026 Virginia ACTE, that's the Association for Career and Technical Education, New Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Michelle H. Williams, a Career and Technical Education teacher. Would you please approach, along with Mrs. Simpson?
Well, good evening. I am so excited to have this opportunity, and I want to put your minds at ease. We did not plan this, truly.
Oh, the
We
outfits.
did not plan to dress alike today. I told her this morning, I said, you know, it's a sign that you like the people you work with when you start dressing alike. So, anyways, good evening, Dr. Gibbs, Matthews County School Board, Dr. Daniels, and Ms. Hunley. It is my great honor to stand before you today to recognize an outstanding educator who has gone above and beyond in shaping the lives of our students at Thomas Hunter. Today, we celebrate Mrs. Michelle Williams for being recognized as the 2026 Association Career and Technical Education New Teacher of the Year for the Virginia ACT in the area of Family and Consumer Science. Being selected is a very long process, as she was nominated by students and staff last year for the award. We have known since December that she was the winner, but we were not at liberty to tell the public quite yet. There was going to be a formal luncheon at the Virginia ACT Leadership Conference, but it was canceled due to the situation that occurred in Richmond a few weeks ago. But it is fitting that I am able to share this news with you in the month of February, as it is also Career and Technical Education Month. Through her work in family and consumer science, she has not only taught essential life skills, but she has also instilled confidence, responsibility, and a sense of purpose in her students. Whether it's teaching some financial literacy, sewing, cooking, nutrition, child development, or career readiness, Ms. Williams has inspired many students from Thomas Hunter. Beyond the classroom, Ms. Williams is also a role model and an advocate for the importance of family and consumer science education. She connects with students, encourages curiosity, and creates meaningful learning experiences in her class. Ms. Williams, your dedication to education and your unwavering belief in the potential of your students is very exciting to see in action. This recognition is a testament of your work, and on behalf of Matthews County Public Schools, Thomas Hunter Middle School, your colleagues, students, and all of us here today and this evening, we want to thank you for your passion and your commitment, and congratulations once again for this honor.
This is a tremendous reward, a tremendous award and recognition. Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. Koenig, would you be interested? Are you getting a good one? Are you getting a good one of the two of them together? That would be lovely. There we go. That is wonderful. Congratulations. Job well done. We expect wonderful things coming ahead. I know we'll get them. Right. Moving right along, we have Ms. Zhang, ready to give your report for schools as our student liaison.
Good evening. I just want to say thank
Dragon.
Testing.
Not yet.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you. I just want to say thank you for letting us have transportation that Monday on the way to RCC Rappahannock. I know a lot of our students enjoyed, and I think it really benefited them, especially for the underclassmen who could not drive yet. So I just want to say thank you for taking that into consideration. And starting off with an update from Mrs. Bray at the elementary school, Matthews Elementary School ended our time together in 2024 with a school-wide sing-along and a visit from Santa. Students were excited to return to school. Despite the numerous unexpected days out of school, students have done an excellent job settling back into a routine. We completed mid-year VALSS, or also known as VALS testing, and we are also looking forward to some fun activities in February. An update from Thomas Hunter Middle School. Our students are celebrating our school counselor with School Counselor Week. THMS students have different activities to do each day. Ms. Hargis organized a fun week. We will be celebrating students in grade 6 who won an attendance and participation event with a hot chocolate party on Friday after lunch. Ms. Yule is organizing a World Read Aloud Day for THMS students on February 5th, where all students will be read aloud to in class. THMS is also getting ready to have our annual book fair on February 24th through the 28th. More information will be forthcoming. There are also activities throughout the month to celebrate Black History Month. Our SCA students are working to keep up a few fun activities for our students. Thank you, Ms. Gregg, for your support with our officers and our class representatives. The THMS Bible Club is gathering items to share the love from THMS to our community. In February, the Bible Club will be collecting donations for community groups. Spread the word and start collecting. A non-exhaustive list includes, but not limited to, jigsaw puzzles, word search, crossword puzzles, playing cards, dominoes, adult coloring books, tissues, throw blankets, lotion, chapstick, deodorant, pens, sketch pads, art, kids, socks, shampoos, soaps, washcloths, toothbrushes, and thinking of you or encouraging letters/cards. Star assessments will be given this month, and we will be able to report later about the results. THMS has had a few exciting past weeks, and on Saturdays, when the intramural basketball games have been played, we would like to thank Ms. Haynes, Mr. Vrooman, and Ms. Stoss for all their work in organizing this season. Congratulations to our students of the month, Autumn Mink, Juliana Burke, Katie Hudgens, Ellie Sowers, Emily Hernandez, and Liam Billups. And our students are really showing up each day. THMS had a 95% attendance rate for January. Great job, Seahawks. Keep up the good work. Lastly, an update from Dr. Grieve at the high school. It has been nice to get back in the swing of things and have a normal 5-day week. The ASVAB tests for juniors have been postponed to April 15th due to the snow, and the senior cap and gown pictures have been rescheduled to this Monday, February 10th. Seniors, please reschedule a time if you don't want to wait to take pictures. The link can be found in the Class of 2025 Google Classroom and on Facebook. We will also have our spring sports meeting on February 10th at 6:30 for all students interested in participating in spring sports. This includes soccer, track, baseball, softball, crew, and girls tennis. If you are unsure or nervous about participating, I want to encourage students to come out and give it a try. Congratulations to the boys basketball team for a last-second victory with a 3-point buzzer beater over Gloucester High School on Saturday, and congratulations to our wrestling team for winning the Tidewater District Championship. Our freshman class is holding a popcorn fundraiser right now, so please see a freshman or Mr. Jaros by February 21st if you are interested in supporting the freshman class. Our junior class is still selling car wash tickets for their fundraiser for prom. They're selling a $30 car wash at Tidal Wave in Gloucester for only $15, so please see someone in the junior class if you want to get a great deal on a car wash and support prom. There will be a PTA meeting in the MHS cafeteria at 6:00 p.m. on February 20th. Please save the date. Our sophomore class is hosting a talent show on March 7th for any student who is interested in showcasing their talents. Last but not least, we are very proud of 3 of our band students for representing Matthews High School in the ODA District 8 Honor Band. Jordan Sadeg, Hunter Owens, and Toby Eskins competed against students from Williamsburg, York County, Gloucester, and Newport News and earned the honor of performing at Woodside High School this weekend. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to recognize
Excellent.
Ms. Suki here. Very rarely, since I've been on this board, that the student rep really gets into things. When the schools were shut down because of the boiler and the water and everything, I got a letter from her stating that they canceled school when they didn't allow the students to go to the other schools where they go, like RCC and Gloucester. And she wrote a letter explaining that they should have had transportation. The transportation was already set, it stayed set, so it's like nothing happened. So I contacted the superintendent, but very rarely, I've sat on this board 4 years now, and this is the first time a student rep sent me something. So my hat's off, you did your job right, and as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to see some more like that. So thank you very much.
Amen, thank you.
Yes, good job, Ms. Zhang, advocating for yourself and others, on behalf of others. It was wonderful, and we're glad we were able to remedy the situation, albeit late.
Amen.
We learned. We all learned. Thank you. Great report, as usual. Item 4, student achievement. We're going to be talking about the K and pre-K VALS, Virginia Language and Literacy Screening System analysis.
So one benefit of the movement of the school board meeting from January to this week is there was time to conduct the VALS mid-year assessment at the elementary school and get the results in. So a quick review of what VALS is. VALS, as a reminder, is replacing PALS across Virginia as an early screening tool. But it's the Virginia Language and Literacy Screening System, and it's the VDOE-sponsored literacy screener for grades K through 3. It's designed to help identify students who may be at risk for developing reading difficulties. It's aligned with the newest reading of Science of Reading. It measures components of reading that are key for reading comprehension. It measures progress over time. And the one thing I wanted to clarify, it assesses skill acquisition and not content mastery. So it's not something that's aligned necessarily with our standards of learning system, but it looks at growth in terms of skill acquisition multiple points during the year. So the expectation is that students are growing in their reading, their skill acquisition over time. So it's not a stagnant benchmark assessment. So that'll be key when we look at scores. So what does VALS do? It gives a snapshot of critical literacy skills at a single moment in time. It helps to identify students who are at risk for developing reading difficulties. And it provides instructionally useful information to target the instruction. So one of the things that is a benefit of VALS is the amount of information that it provides our reading specialists and our teachers in terms of going back and helping students to catch up on any deficits regarding reading skills, and really helping to target what interventions need to be and what those interventions look like. So risk band percentages. So students are identified as being as in low risk. So a low risk is low risk for developing reading difficulties. So in this situation, the more students we have moving to the low risk category, the more I would say successful we are. Moderate risk is students being in the moderate risk band for developing reading difficulties. That requires additional explicit instruction. Supplemental instruction is highly recommended based on student needs. So they're going to get what we would begin to talk about as kind of a tier 2 support model. As we have more conversations about MTSS, a student in that moderate risk category is somebody who we're going to look at a tier 2, needs a little bit more time, kind of a larger group type of instruction. High risk is a student who's at a high risk for developing those reading difficulties and qualifies for early intervention reading initiative. So EIRI requires an additional 2.5 hours of literacy instruction per week. So in other words, all of our students who are in that high risk band are going to be on top of the 2-hour reading block that they have in the elementary school, are going to be receiving an additional 2.5 hours of direct explicit instruction per week. Okay, so we showed a similar chart several months ago looking at our VALS results. So what I've done is added an additional column this time around to show our mid-year scores. So we're looking at grade levels for K, 1, 2, and 3. In the grade level, the 40, so when we're looking at kindergarten, we're looking at 40 and 39. That's the number of students who were tested during so 40 students were tested in the fall, 39 students were tested mid-year. Looking at first grade, second grade, third grade, again, the numbers may be a little bit different based on students moving, et cetera. So When we look at high risk for kindergarten in the fall, we were at a 60% mark, or about 24 of our 40 students in the fall fell into that high risk category. We've reduced that down to 19 now. So where you see the numbers are in green, that would be considered a growth area or improvement as a grade level. Again, going in the moderate risk area, moving from 11 students down to 7, and in the low risk area in kindergarten, moving from 5 students to having 13 students at mid-year now fall into that low risk category area. First grade, again, high risk, moving from 16 down to 13. Moderate risk, moving from 17 to 18. I didn't put the 18, that block in green. I think you could interpret the number of students moving out of the high risk is probably increasing that moderate risk category area. But because that number went up, and to be consistent, I did not highlight that in green. But again, moving from in the low risk category, increasing the number of students at first grade, going from 14 to 16. Second grade again, going from 17 students down to 10. The moderate risk area going from 19 to 9, and a marked increase at second grade in the low risk, increasing those students from 13 up to 29. Again, similar gains at third grade, going down from 13 to 12, from 12 to 8, and then increasing from 28 to 33 students. So as our teachers are adjusting to the Virginia Literacy Act, excuse me, and the requirements and the pacing of that 2-hour literacy block, and the pace and the rigor with the Virginia Literacy Act and the textbook that we have adopted, as our teachers are more fluent with that process, and as we're activating those additional instructional hours, our students are showing gains. Did we hope to have more gains than what we saw? Absolutely. So Ms. Bray and her team are going through and having data meetings on Monday. They're revisiting all that data that come out of those VALS testing, adapting a little bit of the intervention models, intervention structures. Do they need to tweak some of the things in the reading plans to continue to work with students and move them along? And I would also say, in diving into the data a little bit, the elementary school does a great job of having a spreadsheet of every student and every bit of data that they are capturing from various reading assessments, marking that, coding that, using that spreadsheet to look to make changes in student instruction. So that spreadsheet is also shared with me, so I'm able to kind of dive into the data a bit. So when I look at the data, it's not, we have students who, a lot of our students were very clean and moving from one category up to another category, but there are a couple of students who slipped a little bit. Their growth wasn't on pace with what was expected. So the elementary school team is diving especially into what happened with those students. Is that an attendance thing? Is it a gap in instruction? Was it a pacing issue, et cetera? So there are lots of questions that get asked during those data meetings to make sure that each student is receiving the instruction and the support that they need. So one of the conversation points that we've had in the past was to look at preschool versus non-preschool, and looking at the performance of our kindergarten students, preschool, those who had preschool, those who did not have a preschool experience. So I went back and asked the elementary school if they could capture that data based on enrollment questionnaires to determine which of our kindergarten students had a pre-K experience and those who did not, and then mapping out what their VAL scores look like in the fall and then mid-year. So of our 40 kindergarten students, 30 had a pre-K experience, 10 did not. Looking at the fall VALS data, 50% of our students with pre-K experience fell in the high-risk category. 90% of our non-pre-K fell in the high risk. Mid-year, we went from 50% to 43% of our pre-K experience. The no pre-K experience went from 90 to 60%. I intentionally clustered moderate and low risk together in the same category area because our numbers get pretty small. And so I don't particularly want individually identifiable test information, so I intentionally clustered those categories together. So looking at the moderate to low risk categories, again, pre-K experience increased from 50% up to 57%. No pre-K experience moving from 10% up to 30%. Any questions on VALS data from the board?
Yes, Dr. Daniel, we had discussed regarding the pacing guide, a little glitch that the due diligence of our excellent elementary team found. If you could talk to that and how
Sure.
that may have impacted these results and
Sure.
may impact future results.
So when you and I had kind of initial conversation about that, our reading specialist had reached out to our literacy coaches from University of Virginia to provide some additional guidance. There was a collaborative meeting. Did our coaches come down and meet in person? Okay, so they were in-house yesterday and going over some of that data. I think some of the interpretation confusion on our end had to do with content mastery versus skill acquisition and kind of growth and progress. So what the VALS is intended to do is, I guess in my interpretation, is see what a student may be able to do. So there are going to be questions on that VALS that are going to be intentionally above grade level to stretch students to determine what their capacity may be. So there are some questions on there, where a student can test ahead, if you will, even though pacing guide-wise, that content had not yet been covered. So while our reading specialist was going through the data and really combing through it diligently, looking at, well, wait a minute, these questions aren't on the pacing guide, this isn't fair, and some of our kids miss some of these questions. Those questions are there intentionally from the psychometricians to allow a student to
Splintering of
demonstrate
skills.
growth beyond what a grade level expectation may be. So it's not to a detriment in terms of pacing guide for us. It
Good.
was, so we're going back. I think the pacing guide is accurate for what
Good.
what it's supposed to be. So they're diving more into those interventions and looking at kind of the core instruction again.
Okay, the higher level questions or the challenge questions, do they negatively impact, or are they separately measured? If the child answers correctly, do they count in their favor, but is it not held against them if they
That is my
cannot do it?
understanding, that it's
Okay.
in your favor but not against you is my understanding of how that is scored.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
So just to make sure I'm clear, so if the stretch questions, they get them wrong, that's not included, that information is not, that data is not included in these results?
That is my understanding, but I can
Right.
go back and ask that
Yeah.
very specific question with
Okay.
our literacy coaches.
First of all, thank you for bringing this to our attention, and clearly, there's a lot of hard work that's going on out there. Clearly, you know, first grade, 1 out of every 4 student is still in high-risk category. Second and third, 1 out of 5 children. So I mean, I know we all see it, I just felt like I needed to comment on it publicly.
Well, they are learning to read in first grade.
They are.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. We see some, I mean, from what we saw in the fall, you know, we were I think everybody was a little, very worried. So we know that our teachers are working, you know, really, really hard.
And over the next 2 weeks, I believe we'll have STAR testing. So we'll be able to compare what the STAR data looks like compared to our VALS data, and we can compare STAR growth from the fall to mid-year as well, and kind of look at a different type of assessment to determine if that's showing different levels of growth or they're pretty consistent. When we looked at the fall scores, the STAR data and the VALS data aligned pretty closely in terms of the students who were identified in need in VALS were also identified on the STAR data. So we'll see if those two assessments continue to correlate.
Yeah, you're triangulating the data, and what I love is that you're looking at this so specifically, and we can do that because we're small. But the dedication to the individual student is amazing. I'm so impressed. I think this is exactly what I expected as far as our response to performance. And I would just say keep it up, and I'm sure as the teachers are more familiar with the tool, that they're going to get stronger in administration and analyzing, and it'll become those data meetings, as you were saying, I think we were having a conversation about becoming very efficient, and that is the mindset. That is it, because this is the time. This is when all the growth needs to be happening in a small amount of space. They are applying themselves, you're leading it, I'm thrilled.
Yep. Teachers are doing great work, great leadership at the elementary school.
Yes.
Encouraging.
I look at this and I see you got a serious problem. In your second and third grade in procession, the way they came up through the system, it's staying pretty steady, and then all of a sudden you get to the second grade and over half are in the bottom of the class, and then you get to the third grade and you got over half of the class in the bottom. Or is that just the way these numbers look?
No, I don't think that's being interpreted correctly, Mr. Dobson.
Well, I'm looking at, okay, in second grade, in the fall, 26.53%, you had 13 students. In the mid, you had 60.42%, and that equates out to 29 children.
Those are children who've moved up to the low risk category. So they've improved to the low risk. The goal is to get
Kind
into
of
the
like
low
golf,
risk.
low score wins.
Low score wins, yeah.
Low score wins?
Yes.
Low risk for developing
You want to
problems.
move, we want to go from left to right. So we want fewer kids in the high risk moving into the low risk.
Okay.
And so the color coding is to indicate improvement from fall testing session to mid-year testing session.
All right, in that order, you're correct then. My mistake.
It's okay. A lot of numbers on there.
Any questions or comments?
I'm just encouraged by looking at this data. It's very good since the last time we saw the charts.
I think there's cautious optimism, but I think there's not satisfaction at this point with where we are, both
Right.
from the teacher level. So they're really digging in. I think they had hoped greater gains than what we saw. And so they're doubling down and really digging into the data to figure out what we need to do, continue to do differently, or what other things we need to put in place. So, okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Daniel. We're on item 5, citizens' questions, comments, or requests. Comments not pertaining to personnel or student matters are limited to one opportunity of 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the school board clerk. Protocol for public comment period. Matthews County residents and school employees wishing to speak should sign up with their name and address on the sheet if provided. Comment period will end after 90 minutes. All comments should be directed to the school board. Speakers shall not address matters involving students or personnel, as these topics may violate confidentiality and are not appropriate in a public forum. Public comment is the school board's opportunity to listen to the speaker. Since our purpose is to hear from you, the board will not engage in dialogue with the audience or whomever is at the podium. Matters requiring a response will be directed to the superintendent for research and response. The superintendent may report back on such matters at a subsequent business meeting session as appropriate. The school board carefully considers your comments when deciding on matters brought before us. We appreciate your attendance and your input. Yeah, first on the list, Mr. Jack Kirby.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Jack Kirby, 100 Riverbend Place, Copps Creek. And we appreciate what y'all do. It's not easy. It's not an easy job to hear opposing opinions sometimes on different issues, but thank goodness we're allowed to do it, right? So it appears that we got some significant changes coming in our public education in our nation. Which is probably most likely going to result in a heavy workload for some of you guys. This is my opinion. Having said that, now I'm speaking about the daycare. This is going to, if you agree to this daycare, it's going to distract you with this workload that I foresee that's coming to public education in America. And it's going to be a distraction for you if you accept this daycare. Should you sign an agreement with daycare, it's going to be a legal document, a contract, which Matthews County has been dealing with a legal contract with a private entity here in Matthews, and this cost to taxpayers here in Matthews about $300,000. I mean, we could have had our own civic center. Maybe not a civic center, but whatever that is that they want to have in case of a storm. You name it, whatever you want. But I mean, $300,000 would build a decent building. So, and that's an example of what not to do, I think, this litigation going on with another business in the county. And if you implement this daycare, what's going to be the board's response? If another civic association or nonprofit asks for the same consideration that we have given to Y, they want space in the school to start their daycare center. Is that going to open us up for a discrimination issue? And with as far as safety for these children, talking 2 and 3 years old, correct? I think that's what we're talking about here.
Very sorry, Mr. Kirby, your time is up.
Oh, is it 3 minutes already?
It went fast. I know.
Great,
I'm
thanks.
so sorry. Thank you. Thank you for your
My
comment.
goodness, I should have spoke faster.
Our next speaker is Ms. Amy Bohannon-Stewart.
Good evening. I like Mr. Kirby's points he made. I rarely miss a school board meeting, and I've listened to many thoughts for and against Matthews County Public Schools housing the YMCA daycare program. I really like the way Dr. Gibbs summed up things at the last school board meeting when she shared her thoughts on that. I understand that it can be hard for parents to find childcare. I'm going to outline some reasons why I am not in favor of housing any daycare inside of our school building. Okay? I've been an educator for a long time, and I'm well aware that some people think of schools as childcare. Yes, we educators must take care of the children that we are educating. However, I never wanted to be thought of as just a babysitter when I was teaching. Teachers often struggle with the public education as childcare mentality with students themselves after they take their SOL test every year. I remember the time I decided to plan a useful lesson teaching metric to non-metric conversions after the science SOL test. Thought it'd be a useful life skill and that it'd be helpful to those that may do contract work later in life, as well as students going on to take high school chemistry. I even took the time to design a worksheet for it. Some students wanted to know why we were working and learning after we'd already taken their SOL test. I conveyed that I was not a babysitter, and if they were here at school, they should be learning. This is a struggle at the end of every school year brought on by SOL testing and the end of SOL testing. Why would we want to perpetuate the attitude of school and daycare being one and the same by housing any daycare in our public school building? As a taxpayer, I want to keep public education as education and daycare not confused with public education. Our buildings have been neglected, and I'm well aware that you're going to have to get people out of parts of buildings in order to assess and repair. I think our upper administration still remains disconnected and out of touch with the staff they are in charge of, and they state that they want to retain. Judging by the amount of staff you lost last year, some improvements still need to be made. The sooner the school board office can be located here in the Thomas Hunter Matthews Elementary School campus, the better. It would be much more convenient for our superintendents to step in and sub once a month or fill in if a principal is absent if they are located here. As a taxpayer paying for 2 superintendents, when we have trouble retaining staff, there's basically no pipeline of people lined up waiting to work here. I have asked that our superintendents sub at least once a month, like the superintendent in New Kent, to better understand why teachers are leaving. Subbing once a month is a great way for our superintendents to experience what they need in order to make great decisions about Matthews County Public Schools. I've seen video footage of Donald Trump doing jobs that he doesn't typically do in his own hotels, like walking dogs of hotel guests, delivering room service, cleaning bathrooms, and as a taxpayer, I really want superintendents here subbing once a month so they understand the needs of students and the staff. This is going to be a lot easier to do if the school board office staff is housed here. And I would also want our superintendents to set time time at each school
Ms.
before budget
Bohannon-Stewart,
season.
I apologize. Your
Okay.
time is up. Thank
It's okay, I
you.
got most of it in. Thank you.
We have Miss Rebecca Mullins, please.
Good evening, and thank you for everyone putting up with Edward's little squeals. My name is Rebecca Mullins, and I live on 538 Main Street. I'm speaking on behalf of Edward Montgomery, my son. He has been 4 years in your elementary school. He's on his 2nd year of kindergarten, 2 years of PK. This year has been extremely hard for Edward. We have lost his special needs teacher, Miss Victoria Husky, quite a bit before Christmas. Miss Parks really stepped up, his gen ed teacher. She's wonderful, and she has taken great care of him, but she is not a licensed special education teacher. I was told recently by Miss Bray that we had a part-time teacher getting ready to fill in. She will be doing 1 or 2 times a week in class, and everything else will be from home, and his adaptive curriculum will be done at her house and given to his paraprofessionals to teach. I don't feel this is right or fair. While they're looking for a full-time special ed teacher, we have no timeline of when the special ed teacher is going to come in. We have 2 very qualified ladies that have applied that I know of, but yet have not heard back from any one of you that they are hired. I would like a timeline. I would like to know when my son will get a special education teacher that is not part-time. And the letter honestly was a little bit of a slap in the face that the teacher is going to be 1 to 2 times in class for all the special ed teachers or all the special ed kids she has, and she is going to work from home and do cutouts and lesson planning for his adaptive curriculum, and a paraprofessional will teach it. I believe there's a lot of funding for special education children, more so than I would say normal children, but we're not allowed a special ed teacher. I don't feel that's fair for Edward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Mullins. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to approach the podium?
I was back there hoping somebody would put this mic down because I have trouble hearing. So anyway, my name is Sharon Fry. I live in Port Haywood. Good evening and thank you for your service. I come here again to state what I think the responsibilities of the school board are. You can correct me if I'm wrong, I usually am, but I think your job is to educate the students K through 12, to encourage each and every student to reach their maximum potential and achievement in learning, to create an environment that will protect our children, to keep them in a safety environment, to create an environment of security that is conducive to learning. Your responsibility has nothing to do with promoting or accepting a daycare to be installed in our existing schools. We have much more dire problems here in Matthews County. I believe that this is where 100% of your time should be focused on. It should not be focused on an in-house daycare center. All that being said, I do hope that the Y will set up a daycare in Matthews County. So be it. The public needs it. I'm not pro daycare. I believe the children should stay at home where they can be loved and nurtured with a mother. Not always possible. I was a full-time working mother, I know that. And then I believe it should be detached from our public schools. And I do have one question about the PowerPoint today on VALS. It focused on pre-care and K VALS percentage. What the percentage was in reading with pre-K and what the percentage, but it didn't say what the percentage was in first, second, and third grade. Now, I'm the youngest of 9 children. None of us ever had pre-K. So my curiosity is, I wish you would elaborate a little bit more instead of just pre-K and kindergarten. See if the people in the first, second, and grade who didn't have pre-K, how they did. I'm sure the teachers got them up to their potentials. Anyway, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Ms. Fry.
Made it in my 3 minutes.
You sure did.
Richard Hicks, North Virginia. Let us start with this reminder. The Y has said they're going to do their daycare/education program even if they can't do it in school facilities. Now, at the last school board meeting, one of the board members said, and this is a paraphrase, if not a quote, "We have an obligation to educate every child that comes through the door." Well, that is patently false. The board, as stated in the state constitution, is supposed to provide an appropriate education for K through 12 students. And there is a serious problem with board members spreading such information. And that problem is that people believe them. Witness the fact that at the last school board meeting, a supposedly well-educated individual got up and said to the board, and here again I paraphrase, if not quote, "If you're not going to provide space for the Y program, what alternative are you offering?" And it was a harangue. Well, that is flat ridiculous. The school board doesn't have to offer any alternatives. It's not your job to provide an alternative to the Y's proposal. But obviously, this person was taking that very pointed but misguided question because they believe school board members making statements that they have an obligation to teach every child that comes through the door. So board members, please stop misleading the general public. And I will close by repeating what the Y has said, that they are going to do their daycare education program even if they can't do it in school facilities. So please save the taxpayers some money and do your fiduciary responsibility, which is not to spend money on it, and tell the Y to take their program elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Is there anyone else who'd like to approach the podium? There being none, we'll move on to item 5.2, school board comments. Members?
Yeah, I'd like to address I'd like to address what the lady brought up. Is it true? These children are going into homes to be taught?
I don't think that's what she was alleging. So she's not alleging that the kids are going to this individual's home for instruction now. She's working on lesson plans and things at home.
All right, okay, so the child's not going into the home.
Correct.
All right, and we're looking for a special ed teacher, right?
Correct.
Any enticement we can put into it?
We're going through the process of interviewing and looking. Part of the, there aren't a ton of individuals who meet that criteria. In many cases, those individuals are already under contract with other divisions. So, I mean, there's some complications and some delicate conversations being had to try to resolve our issue.
Well, can we give them some extra money, and that might make a difference?
It's more than, the complications are more than money,
Okay.
put it that way.
I too would like to say thank you for your comments tonight. I had the privilege of teaching Edward for a bit over at the elementary school, and he is a wonderful little one, and I am sorry we're in this predicament. And I, for one, and I know my colleagues also, we will certainly try our best to get somebody in that position full-time. Thank you for coming.
I have a comment regarding Ms. Fry's curiosity about the attendance in pre-K for the other levels beyond K, so our first, second, and third graders. I think if we could, if we have that data, that would be really interesting to see. And also to report the observation that the majority of our students in kindergarten did receive pre-K services. Was they are finding services. That was interesting to me. Sample size being so small, it's very hard to glean a lot of good information from that data, but nonetheless, I do appreciate the attempt to look deeply into these issues. Yes, Dr. Daniel.
So full disclosure, I looked at the other grade levels as well in terms of tracking the data to determine who had preschool, who definitely did not have a preschool experience, and then unknown. It became too cloudy to really make some conclusions in the grade levels 1 and older, because there were just too many unknown students who had unknown preschool experiences, and to assume that they had none when we just didn't know if it was none or any, I felt clouded kind of the data. And so that's why, I mean, I was super curious as well to go, okay, well, are we catching up by first grade? Is there a difference in second grade? What is that a launching pad for students, or is there really no difference? It just became too difficult to make a determination of who did not, and just unknown preschool experience.
Well, that's very logical. Thank you for that update on that. Board members, any additional comments? All right. We'll move on then to number 6, item 6, superintendent's informational reports. And just as a reminder, we will have added to that item 6.5, which is the boiler summary information. But we'll start with attendance data on 6.1.
I'll actually try to do this from here for right now, if that's okay with everyone. If the remote will work, and if not, I'll go back to my perch. Okay. Nope, not that one. It's in board docs. I don't know that it may be that the slide didn't get shared, so it's probably in board docs. right, I tell you what, I'll hop to 6.2 and talk academic calendar while you're getting attendance loaded, if that's okay. All right, so 2 calendars for the 25-26 school year have been proposed. There's draft 1 and draft 2. A couple highlights regarding the calendars. Draft 1 moves us to a 179-day calendar. Draft 2 moves us to a 180-day calendar. The only particular difference in that calendar has to do with the Monday before Election Day. So in draft 1, that is a teacher workday. In draft 2, that is an instructional day, and that's what makes the difference in the number of instructional days. Part of the rationale, we currently this year are on a 177-day instructional calendar. State code is you need 180 days or 990 hours. So we're working on developing our makeup plan to get back to 990 hours. We are about 12 and a half hours right now shy of that 990. So part of the goal with these calendars was to have more bank time built in. Also with an understanding from the board that should we not need additional days after high school graduation, we can back some days out of the calendar. We would know that probably after spring break and can make a calendar adjustment to back some of that time out that wouldn't necessarily be needed. So a survey has been pushed out to all faculty members to solicit their input in terms of their preference on the draft. I've also shared it with Planning Council, gave them the survey to submit their input. So staff members who are listening or watching, if you haven't completed that survey, please feel free to go complete that survey. The response was a bit tepid. There hasn't been widespread, so check email to see that you got a shared, an invite to take that survey. I think I've gotten, 12 responses, somewhere around in that range. So it went out, but whether it got lost, I don't know. So those are draft items for the board. Hope to vote to approve those calendars in the near future. We're also having I guess another highlight about the calendars is Easter is earlier in 26. It's earlier in April, so this calendar provides spring break directly following Easter. It also has a teacher workday. The third quarter ends on what would be Good Friday, and that's the calendar kind of falls nicely in that day. That Good Friday would end up being a teacher workday, and Easter Monday would then fall into spring break. So those are some of the highlights on that.
I would like to say also that you have done a great job of incorporating the important dates into the year. So we have an expanded section for important dates, but marked on the calendar as a result of the promotion of patriotism policy, and I appreciate that.
All right, I'll go back up to 6.1, attendance data, and review, take a look at that attendance data. Okay, so again, highlighting kind of the different category areas. In many of the cases, we're seeing a reduction as compared to last year. The one caveat to that is the number of students who are already at the chronically absent mark at our 3 schools. So we are above that in 2 out of the 3 schools at this time, and still having some at-risk students who are at risk at Matthews High School with regards to being chronically absent. Positive to look at the parent notes and students exceeding parent notes. Ms. Thomas is doing a fantastic job, as well as the school staff, in working on submitting attendance letters and working on attendance plans to help work with students to make sure their attendance improves. Ms. Thomas does a tremendous job in coordinating with court services when we do have to have students taken to court services. So it's oftentimes attendance is a habit, and so once you've developed those habits over years, it's very difficult to break those habits. Oftentimes those are generational habits. So as what's probably the most encouraging is the success then that we are beginning to see at the elementary school, beginning to change the habits within our community about attendance and sending students to school. It's a long way to go in terms of really turning around and meeting the benchmarks that we want to see with attendance, and it's super difficult to change that. So I mean, we have conversations and we talk about different action plans and ways, and it's not just missing the bus and staying home. It's just not coming to school or doing other things. So it's a routine conversation. We're working to try to address it. One of the other pieces we talked about during the budget meeting was having the school social worker moving from a 10-month contract to 11-month contract, because while school may be out of session, that work is still ongoing to work with families and coordinating with other agencies to support our efforts to get kids to come to school. Yes, ma'am, sorry.
Could you just at some point speak about what the attendance plans, a little bit more about who contributes to that? And how's it measured? I mean, I'm not.
So
familiar
typically,
with
an attendance plan is a multidisciplinary team activity. So you're developing that plan. You're going to have a school counselor, an administrator, the school social worker, maybe a teacher, maybe the school resource officer is going to participate in the development of that plan. And in that plan, it's asking questions of, are you missing the bus? If you missed the bus, how can you call the school and we'll send a car to come get you? Is it, well, you've had a lot of doctor's appointments, you've got this chronic running nose, and so you need to stay home because you've got a runny nose. Well, is there a different way that we can then work with that student to, hey, how about you come in and we'll have you checked out by our nurse, and if our nurse says you need to go home, then we'll figure out a way to get you back home. You say you're having a fever, how about you come in and we'll check your temperature here and confirm that you're running a fever, et cetera, et cetera. So it's having the right people in the room to ask the questions to remove barriers from attending school, and figuring out, how do we divert or allocate resources to individuals to families to get them to come to school. It's also, part of that meeting is also, if you don't, then at this mark, here is what is going to happen. And before we go into court services, we have to document that we've had that meeting, that we've attempted these things prior to pursuing truancy charges. So, but the meeting is really set up to what barriers are in place that are preventing your child from coming to school. And it runs the gamut on various things. It may be that, we were on vacation for 2 weeks and we exceeded our parent notes. And so in that case, okay, well, you don't, and it's that sort of process.
It's very helpful, thank you.
Item 6.3, other information for the school board. You have the school-based financial reports. There's also the December FY25 expenditure reports. While we have just moved on from the calendar, there is a request that was submitted from the Matthews Market Days Committee for the board to consider the Friday of market days to either be a no school day or a half school day. For sake of disclosure, I'm not in support of that recommendation for the calendar to make that a day off. For the major purpose in my mind is the consistency in starting the school year. So the first week is a 4-day week. This would then make a 3-day week in the second week. per state code, if you start before Labor Day, you have to give the Friday and the Monday of Labor Day weekend off. And so that then gives us to start the year a 4-day week, and then we follow that up with a 3-day week, and really trying to get routines established, especially with little ones, is pretty critical. There's also a historical piece that, while I wasn't here, I've been informed of, where there was a request to have school on the Friday of market days. I think in previous years it was a day off or a half day. And so the request was to then, of the school board, to then have school, because there were lots of children running feral. And again, we are not a daycare, but to provide instruction for students and structure. So as part of my due diligence in checking on this, I did call and have a conversation. I think I texted the sheriff to gauge her input on this, and I think she is a proponent of students being in school on that Friday. Not to speak for her, but so, I mean, that's the board's conversation, the board's discussion, but again, we'll come to a vote on the calendar at a later board meeting. 6.4, a little bit about consolidation update. We talked a bit about it during the budget work session. The school board, the school division, I put out a request for proposals for engineering and architectural firms to do a facility study. The deadline for submission of those proposals was Friday at 4 o'clock. We've received 2 proposals. The goal of those studies is to provide the school board and really the Board of Supervisors with a very comprehensive analysis and projection of what are existing buildings in terms of square footage, useful lifespan, upgrade maintenance, to provide an assessment of current facilities, and then a projection of what renovations may cost or new construction may cost, and really give a recommendation as to what should be done with our school facilities. So that was born out of a November joint work session. Also the goal of this is, based on that study, is to provide some guidance as to, is it best to go with as you know, we've had conversations, a K-12 building, a 2-school model school division? Do we have, would it make sense to, completely build a whole nother campus in one shape or another? So we're working through and seeking out outside professional engineering and architectural firms and enrollment projection. The word I'm looking for, searching for, is projection, sorry. To provide projections on enrollment and best estimates for advice to our Board of Supervisors and to our school board. We're also, part of our earlier meeting today, are looking at getting some health and wellness, basically, testing done of our school facilities in terms of air sampling for mold or asbestos or other contaminants in the building, as some of that testing will help inform some of our renovation versus construction conversations moving forward. That November meeting was we had basically established a timeline of December of 2025 for the school board to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. I think as many of the repair issues that we've had to encounter over the last several weeks, I think the urgency for a plan and an urgency for a decision has increased and accelerated. So I think both boards are working in an attempt to make a smart decision earlier than the previously established December 2025 timeframe. So we're working to try to meet those goals, but also to make some smart decisions about renovation, construction, but also kind of the impact that that's going to have on a school budget, on the county budget, and the community of Matthews as a whole. So, okay, 6.5 is the boiler and water update. You got that one?
5.
Okay. So part of what I wanted to do and asked for an alteration to the agenda was an attempt to kind of go point by point, day by day, to provide a timeline as to what took place, what was, what we did, what is still happening, and some correction of information. Okay, wow, that's small on that screen. Okay, so basically on January 13th at the I think I'm okay, thank you then. At the the school board and the board of supervisors hold a joint leadership meeting once a month to kind of work through. Most of that has been maintenance, merger conversations, having conversations about budget. So at our January 13th meeting, one of the key pieces of conversation was the ongoing leaking hot water pipes at the elementary school and the need to resolve that maintenance issue. So it was discussed and determined to get estimates as soon as possible to determine what that cost was going to be. So county maintenance staff on the 14th went to the boiler room with our current HVAC service provider to begin to develop an estimate for replacing that hot water pipes. We also have a leaking chilled water pump that's in that boiler room. So they were also working to develop an estimate on repairing the seals in that piping. While they're in there, they're kind of tracing the piping and uncovered some suspect interconnected lines between our boiler water system and the domestic water supply to the school. So on the 15th, we held a meeting to discuss those concerns about the interconnectedness of those two water systems. So the boiler water system should really be completely independent of the domestic water supply. There was an existing connection with an existing backflow valve. So there was also concern about the connectedness of the chilled water line of the boiler system and the hot water line of the boiler system, understanding that the chilled water line contains ethylene glycol, which is basically antifreeze. So the concern then becomes if the chilled water line penetrates into the hot water line of the boiler system, and now we've got this connectedness between the boiler system and the domestic water system. If all of these things begin to fail, we could have an issue. And in the absence of being able to test that very quickly and to get water samples to confirm that we did not have an issue, we decided to close schools. So in this meeting on the 15th, members of the school division, members from the county maintenance department are all kind of having this conversation about how do we work in concert to ensure that the water supply in the elementary school is safe. How do we do that as quickly as possible to get the testing, and then if we have to take corrective action, how quickly can we get that action taken? So at that meeting on the Wednesday, January 15th, it was determined to close school on Thursday the 16th and Friday the 17th, knowing that Monday the 20th was a holiday. Also on that day, so county maintenance was working to find, so we were calling places like who can do this testing, how long, what's the turnaround time. Honestly, at one point, we were being told it was going to be 2 weeks before we could get testing for ethylene glycol. So we kind of rode a roller coaster of how long it was going to take to get various various testing done. That didn't turn out to be the case, but that's where we were. All right, so on the 16th, schools were closed to students and staff. County maintenance contracted with James R. Reed and Associates for expedited water testing. Following that company's protocols, county staff went to their facility, picked up their tubes, bottles, their containers to capture the water samples, came back, took water samples, returned them to James R. Reed for testing. Also that day, our contractor, Southern Air, conducted some on-site water testing. Their water testing was not as detailed. It was just testing for the presence of ethylene glycol in the water and not giving us kind of a parts per million testing. Their initial on-site testing showed no evidence of ethylene glycol where it wasn't supposed to be. Okay, also on the 16th, I reach out, I have a conversation with our insurance provider, begin having conversations with them. While we didn't have to file a claim at that point, we still haven't, but to just giving them some briefing as to the situation, if they had any input on that, on the process, to let us know. Also on the 16th, I have a conversation with the Virginia Department of Health, provide an overview to that individual as to what was going on, what our concerns were, what actions we had taken at that point. Chamberlain Mechanical out of Richmond area was brought on site to conduct a pressure test of the valve that connected the boiler system to the domestic water supply system. It was determined that valve warranted replacing, and so he then ordered a replacement valve and also an additional valve as a fail-safe on another part of the boiler system. On the 17th, schools, again, were closed on that Friday. I filed an incident report with the Virginia Department of Health, Office of Water Quality. Also, again, kind of updated our insurance carrier based on what we knew at that time. All right, Monday, this is kind of where things, I think, got a little confusing. So schools are closed on Monday, MLK holiday. That morning, Chamberlain Mechanical replaces the one valve, adds a second backflow valve. Late in the day, the James R. Reed and Associates communicated verbally that basically what happened, they communicated verbally that there were high levels of ethylene glycol in the boiler water. The samples that were taken from the boiler room were, the chilled water was taken from the boiler room. The hot water supply was taken from the pipes down the hallway that historically have leaked, because we wanted to test the water that was down in the system that potentially could have eked into the classroom. So then when it was communicated that it was in the boiler room, what was communicated was interpreted to be the hot water, not the chilled water that was actually tested from the boiler room. We didn't at that point have access to the written test results. Those had been emailed, but we weren't able to access those. So based on that miscommunication, our action plan was based off of the impression that the hot water lines running down the hallways had high levels of ethylene glycol. Those pipes had leaked numerous times over, definitely this year, but in previous years as well, had gone into classrooms, had leaked under doors, onto classroom carpets, et cetera, that we needed then a pretty extensive cleanup process. Those test results were communicated to us late in the day on Monday. So the decision, again, was made to close school on that Tuesday. So we then schedule another joint work session on some planning because we had canceled the school board meeting for that Tuesday, and the accompanying work session was also closed. County maintenance staff was calling to try to coordinate an environmental cleanup firm to come in and see how quickly they could come in and clean any contaminated areas, what that cleanup process would look like. We're having a joint meeting scheduled for that Tuesday morning. Following that joint meeting, I then come to the school and meet with principals. I'm directing principals to find an action plan to move every classroom off of the blue hallway in the elementary school, to relocate those classrooms. So to find a way to reopen school as quickly as possible. Kudos to those principals. They had a plan figured out in about 2 hours of how we could double up, how we could move classrooms, where we could do stuff. Environmental cleanup firm had showed up kind of midday on Tuesday. They're giving a basic overview and an assessment of what would need to take place. We then circle back, some leadership circle back to begin to look at press release, insurance claims. Also in that Tuesday morning meeting, the conversation was, we as a community, both boards are going to need to access emergency funding for a cleanup process to take place at the elementary school. Again, based on miscommunicated test results. So that's then why an emergency joint board meeting was scheduled with the intent to activate emergency funding. So around midday, I'm circling back, debriefing in the county administration office, we then are going through the actual test results, dive into the test results, have questions about the test results because we interpret where the samples were taken and the test results on those various samples indicate ethylene glycol was where ethylene glycol was supposed to be and not where it wasn't supposed to be. And so the results showed doubled up what we felt in the test results we had gotten from Southern and where things were supposed to be. We then called the testing agency to confirm our interpretation of the results, talk through the miscommunication, clarified that all parties were in agreement that the ethylene glycol was where it was supposed to be and not where it wasn't supposed to be. So then went back, talked to the principals, said, we're good, we can open school tomorrow, begin the process of communicating that school would be open, pending weather. So yeah. Okay, I think I covered everything on that slide. I followed up with the Virginia Department of Health, Office of Water Quality, sent them the replaced valve test results, pictures and test results of everything confirmed. I sent them the water sample test results to confirm what they needed from us. Again, followed up with our insurance carrier. We were on the phone several times that day. But my last phone call of the day was, I think we're okay. So summary of some of the actions that were taken. We closed school on 16 and 17 based on the potential exposure. 2 water tests showed no evidence of ethylene glycol in domestic hot water supply. An existing backflow valve was replaced. A second backflow valve has been added. We've been in pretty regular contact with our insurance provider, pretty regular contact with the Virginia Department of Health. What is still coming? In our conversations with our insurance carrier, we requested a risk assessment analyst from VACOR to come in. So he is coming on February 11th to go through our facilities, to provide guidance, to feedback, where we need additional training, where we need improvements, and whatever. So he's coming through, spending the day, going through our various areas to give us updates and kind of an action plan for improvement strategies. I'm still investigating the calls for the lapse and the inspection of the valves, and to try to figure out what took place there. We're working on a contract to have a regular annual valve inspection contract going forward. Tim Tillage, during the previous meeting, has reached out to a couple, at least 2 firms, to get an estimate for, one replacing the seals and the leaking pipes at the elementary school, but also removing the ethylene glycol from the elementary system. There is a safer alternative called propylene glycol. But in order to do that, you have to drain the entire system of all the water, shut down the HVAC system in order for that to happen, is my understanding. I have scheduled a 3rd water test is scheduled for this Friday by a different firm. They are sending their representative out to take the samples to do the testing and the like. So just putting any sort of, or as many concerns to rest as possible regarding the essence of ethylene glycol in the water supply. I've tried to move away from saying to make sure that our water is good. I'm not sure that anybody in Matthews says their water is good, so I'm trying to be more precise in my language to say there's no ethylene glycol in the water supply. And one correction. There was a concern that the boiler system had not been inspected since 2009. That's not accurate. The boiler system, there is an actual inspection sticker on the boiler that says it's due for its next inspection in June of 2025. It's a 2-year inspection process. So those stickers are actually on the boiler. I think where that got applied was from the valve inspection, and so that's the investigation that I'm still undertaking to determine were they inspected and we don't have the paperwork, were they not inspected, kind of what's going on, and if they weren't, like what happened, what got dropped 15 years ago, and basically every year since then. So that's kind of I won't say quick, but an overview of kind of those days, what sort of took place, kind of the play-by-play, what we've enacted during those steps, what we're still doing going forward, and how we're trying to resolve that situation. So. And let me put my glasses on, and I think that's the end of superintendent's information.
It is. Members, do you have any questions or comments? I appreciate all of those updates, especially the last one. I think that's very important that we clearly communicate the timeline of events with the boiler and water system situation. And I appreciate the time that it took to put that together and to spend speaking with the community and the board about that. Thank you, Dr. Daniel. Moving on to item 7 for school board informational reports. We have item 7.1. We have a YMCA preschool proposal information and discussion for the board. As everyone knows, at this point, there is no action to be taken at this time in terms of a vote for the preschool proposal by the Y, but we did have updated information regarding an MOU being returned from our attorney with comments. So we wanted to add it to this agenda to have the opportunity to discuss any features or any new information that we felt was relevant. Members, do you have any comments? And we're not presenting those documents. They're still just for our eyes, but I think we can make some general comments if you would like to make them. And we are missing a member, so we're... Are there any comments that the board would like to make based on what they've received, information they've received? There will be, the action item to take the vote on this proposal will be at the official February meeting, which is on February 18th. So with no discussion points at this point, Mr. Dobson, did you have any comments that you know? Okay, no discussion at this point, but just to let the public know that we did receive comments back from the attorney, from our school board attorney, regarding the MOU, and edits were made. Item 7.2, just for everyone's information, there will be a public hearing for the 2025-2026 school budget this Thursday, February 6th at 5 p.m. right here, followed by a work session, a budget work session by the school board only in this auditorium. So I know that's quick. We've got a lot of meetings this month, but just so you know, that is in 2 days. We're meeting right here again, 5 p.m. with a 6 p.m. Budget work session to follow. Item 7.3, there'll be a school tour for representatives of community and civic organizations this Thursday as well, February 6th, 2025 at 9 a.m. at Thomas Hunter Middle School is where you start. And I believe that you meet here at 8:45 and that RSVPs or reservations for that were to be made by today, I believe.
So there's a form, Google form on the website?
Google form on the website, yes. I did find that. That's good. With two max representatives from each community or civic organization who desires to come do the tour with Dr. Daniel. Item 7.4, we will have a school board town hall on Tuesday, February 25th, 2025 at 6 p.m. in this auditorium at Thomas Hunter Middle School. The next day, item 7.5, the school board will have its winter work session, and that's Wednesday, the 26th, from 8 to 3 in the Chesapeake Bank Community Room. Item 7.6, please, members, see your trainings that are available, past and future. I think everybody is cleared up as far as we have things that are due, but they're not due for a while. So we're in good shape with that, but keep abreast of this information. Item 7.7, board and committee reports by school board members and superintendent. We do have a lot of blanks for our Board of Supervisors meetings, and I'm hoping to fill out a good portion of these. We have our January meeting was held, their meeting was held in January, so now we are looking for February on. Are there any dates at this point that members believe they can fill in if we work in the first half of the year at least?
Dr. Gibbs, I think my February is pretty much filled up. And I'm not certain about March, but you can pencil me in for April if you would like.
All right, April 17th then for Mr. Morgan. Ms. Morgan, thank you.
Dr. Gibbs, I will take February 20th.
Well, thank you, Ms. Diggs. Ms.
You're
Diggs will
welcome.
take February 20th. I'll take March 20th.
I will take May 15th. I have to that gives me time to reschedule appointments that would work out.
Okay. So Mrs. Hodges will take May. And so any takers for June, or shall we hold it at May? Mr. Dobson?
What was that for?
This is attending the Board of Supervisors meeting, and the date I'm looking for is June 19th.
June 19th?
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Dobson will take June 19th, Ms. Morgan. We'll hold it there for now. Moving to item 8, action items. We only have one action item this evening. And this is the approval of the amended 2024-2025.
Matt,
Pardon, yes.
7.8?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm missing something here. Oh, I am missing.
June 19th. Dr. Gibbs, June 19th is a holiday.
Thank you.
19th is a holiday.
All right, backing up. Thank you for that. Backing up. June 19th is a holiday, so let me see. You've rescheduled for the 18th? Thank you. So the new date for the June Board of Supervisors meeting will be June 18th. Thank you. And thank you, I didn't scroll down. I missed 7.8, policy committee discussion. Last month, we had approved a policy committee, a policy for establishing standing committees on the school board. And I wanted to bring up the idea of establishing a policy committee, a subcommittee on our board. I think that we have a lot of needs in the area of our current policies in terms of review, and it will be very helpful to Ms. Morgan if we take up this action point, and this is really something that is under our purview, and we must focus on this, and I think it's time that we have a committee that can directly address it. But I did think that, I believe Mrs. Hodges and I spoke about discussing this at the work session, at the winter work session, to see if there were any members who were interested in participating, and any comments about establishing a standing committee, the policy committee being the first one that I believe has been established in a long time. So are there any comments or discussion points regarding the idea of establishing a policy committee within our school board?
May I ask how many you are looking to have, you'd like to have on that?
Right, we wouldn't be able to have more than two, but we could not have less than two. We need two, and then we would be looking as needed. We would be seeking out school board office personnel, and maybe even looking at community participation, but it would be 2 members max.
Thank you.
And we'll talk more about this, but it warrants attention. Right, Ms. Morgan? Correct, yes. All right. Item 8, our action items, as I said, we only have one. I'm seeking a motion for the approval of the amended 2024-2025 academic calendar.
I need to.
Yes, Dr.
I just need to add one caveat. The amended, what is in board docs in terms of the amended academic calendar was posted prior to our missing additional days. And so this was posted when we just had to miss the 2 days. And so what's in board docs has virtual learning days listed. So that is not really part of this calendar. What we do need the board's vote on is moving the graduation date. At the next board meeting, I will submit a revised calendar for this school year to add basically additional time to our school days to do the makeup, for the time lost. Just spoiler alert, it doesn't include taking spring break or any of the other holidays. It basically is just adding time to the existing school day. So, but what I want to work with is the principals to develop how exactly that time is going to be used during the school day, so we can provide all the information at one time rather than a drip here and a drip there. So, take it back.
So I would,
We do have a solution for do have a solution for our situation here. So looking for a motion.
I'm going to vary from the recommended action, and I'm going to make a motion to amend the 2024-25 academic calendar to move Matthews High School graduation date from Saturday, June 7th, 2025 to Saturday, May 31st, 2025. I know that varies from what you're talking about.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
Do we have any discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, so that passes. So what we will have, our graduation will move from June 7th, 2025 to Saturday, May 31st, 2025. And that is, would you like to describe the purpose a little bit?
I'll explain a little bit the rationale behind that. Currently, the state track meet is scheduled for the same day as the Matthews High School graduation. Projections are that about 14 to 15 of our graduating seniors would be participating in that state track meet. Because we have enough advance notice now to make that change, we wanted to go ahead and allow families enough time to adjust, to be able to hold, to make any sort of arrangements to be able to move that graduation a week earlier. Virginia High School League will do our graduation ceremony at the track meet, but having that a significant number of our seniors to be away from graduation and miss that unique moment in their lives and their families' lives when we have time to make an adjustment, kind of made sense for us to go ahead and make that recommendation to adjust to that. And Memorial Day is the weekend prior to that, so it's not the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. So just to kind of, folks don't have the calendar at the ready right now, but this is the Saturday after Memorial Day Monday is what we're talking about. Okay.
Great, that's well said, good. All right, moving to item 9, we have an opportunity for citizens' comments once again on items discussed during the meeting. Do we have anybody who would like to approach the podium?
Richard Hicks, North Virginia. I've been listening to your discussion on water. I believe Renee Hall is your district engineer, Virginia Department of Health, Office of Drinking Water. Now, you're required to have a cross-connection program and an annual inspection of cross-connection devices. Normally, your waterworks operator is the individual responsible for making sure this stuff happens. Kind of wondering who is your waterworks operator. It appears your waterworks operator isn't doing their job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Is there anyone else who'd like to approach the podium?
Jack Kirby, Cobbs Creek, Virginia. I don't believe personally that it's the taxpayer's responsibility to furnish daycare. I don't think we should be in the daycare business. I think it's the school board's responsibility as well as the board of supervisors in Matthews County. Their fiduciary responsibility is to the taxpayers and not any special interest. And we're taxed enough. I'd say half of Matthews County's tax revenue comes from retired citizens on fixed income. So we don't need any more responsibility, financial responsibilities to the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby.
Good evening, Marie Walls, Port Haywood, Virginia. I'd like to see some positive comments. I know with the weather that closed the schools, as a parent, I'd like to say thank you to Dr. Daniel for closing the schools promptly. As a parent, I think parents appreciate that. I think by design, Principal Simpson made a call back when schools opened the night before with an alert to the parents saying we're welcoming students back the next day. That was kind of a notice to us that we would be back to school the next day, and I think the parents appreciated that. On a note as far as what the superintendent and the assistant superintendent do, I'm going to switch from parent to Commonwealth attorney. When the schools closed for the boiler and for the weather, we had some meetings set up, and we needed Ms. Hundley to pull some records that we were needing from teachers and from counselors related to some criminal charges. And we partner with the schools a bit for records and to verify maybe things that victims tell us, children victims, regarding crimes. Because the teachers were off-site and the counselors were off-site, we were able to coordinate and get some dates. Ms. Hunley was very helpful in that. These were records that she was allowed to release because we had parent consent. So nothing was done that was improper. But I think there's a lot of things that the school does with the superintendents and the administrative offices with subpoenas, duces, tecums that maybe the teachers are not aware of, and maybe the school personnel are not aware of. But I think the partnership that we and the sheriff have with the schools is invaluable to the students, to the victims, and it really is of support, and I think the school board should know about that. So I appreciate that. Dr. Daniel and I meet every quarter with the sheriff to work out any issues that we have with students. Truancy, chins, try to help to get the students back on board, and that partnership and communication is invaluable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walls.
Sharon Fry, Port Haywood. I had one question about the $500,000. You said it was up on there on the, and you didn't specify what that was for, but anyway, moving on. My question is, we always look at these graphs and it says low risk, moderate risk, high risk. High risk, high risk, high risk. But what you do is you give them 2.5 hours of instruction a week and you push them on. You push them on. Next year, they're still in the high risk category. Next year, they're still in the high risk. We're pushing them on, we're pushing them on. They reach the 8th grade, they're still in high risk. What about No Child Left Behind? This is my bugaboo here. When I was young, the children were retained. It was called retention. Sometimes you didn't make it to the 3rd grade because, believe it or not, you weren't high risk, you weren't ready. Now, if the government's going to change the education system, my question to the school board, and I guess to the state of Virginia, what happened to retention? Sometime that child is not ready to move on with their peers. It should be up to the school board to assess that, and it should also be the parents should be involved. If they don't think their child is ready to move on, sometime a child needs a little extra time, maybe a year, instead of being put in another high-risk category the next year. That's just my own bugaboo, and it'll be in my craw and forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fry.
Daniel Schrader from Cobbs Creek, Virginia. Dr. Daniel, I'd like to thank you for the information about the boiler system. I had a couple of concerns. You mentioned the $500,000 repair and that there was a 2-year inspection on the boiler system. So my question is, why didn't the company that was doing the inspection notice the cross-contamination valve? Why wasn't it inspected annually? And why didn't they notice that a second one should be in place as a means of a double block? Why did the maintenance department notice that? I heard there were leaks of the ethylene glycol all over the room. So again, why didn't the company doing the inspections notice them and suggest a fix? So what's the competency of that company? And why are we at that $500,000 repair when maintenance, annual maintenance, probably could have eliminated a large portion of it? Beyond that, I don't want a daycare at our school. I don't think it's our responsibility as a taxpayers to do daycare here. So.
Thank you, Mr. Schrader. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment at the podium tonight? Members, would you like to make any comments? Dr. Daniel, would you like to make any comment about any boiler? No?
I've talked enough about boilers.
Talked enough about boilers. Okay. All right. Okay.
I got something to say.
School board members, we're on item 10, school board member reports. Yes, Mr. Dobson.
Yes. From what I understand, that valve that allows water to flow into the cafeteria fresh water wasn't discovered until 2 weeks ago. So 25 years have elapsed, am I right?
That's kind of what we think.
25 years elapsed without the valve being noticed. Now, when the blueprints were printed out, they should have got a copy of them, and that valve should have been on it. But it took them 25 years to find it, so that tells me we had people that were incompetent. That should answer your question, sir, I hopefully. Well, that's what happened. We've had 25 years of that valve being there and nobody knowing it was there. That's exactly what happened. Huh?
We will restrict this to board member comments.
All right. But that's what went down. Now, as far as inspection, the boiler, they weren't sure about the boiler. They found the sticker on the boiler. These inspections are laid down by the law. They're done every so often. The same as the water sampling, it is done every so often. I haven't seen the results on any water sampling in over 2 years. So, but they're supposed to be done. Whether they're done or not, I don't know. We got a maintenance guy now. He's the first one I've seen that's on the ball. He's done a pretty good job since he's been here. I can't speak for the other ones, but the guy we presently have, Mr. Tillage, I think his name is, he's on the ball, and hopefully we won't have any more. This thing is turning up like that.
Thank you, Mr. Dobson. Members, any comments? All right. We're approaching item 11, closed meeting. May I have a motion to enter into closed meeting?
I make a motion to enter into closed meeting in accordance with the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Section 2.2-3711, Print A, Print 1. Discussion or consideration of personnel matters, professional staff retirements, professional staff resignation, support staff retirement, winter and spring volunteer coaches, appointment of spring coaches, intramural basketball coordinator appointments, and extracurricular activities sponsor appointment, and Section 22.1-60.1, mid-year evaluation of superintendent.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are now in closed session.